The sutta that we've offered for today, in English, it's called nodding off. In the Pali, it's pachala or pachala ayamana sutta. This is somewhat of a random choice. It's because we have a moment in between one fixed program and another fixed program, a free moment for me to follow the links from this to that. We were looking at the nutriments for the denourishing of the hindrances, and sloth and torpor is one of the hindrances. So that's how the sutta came to me. But I like this sutta very much. I'm going to share the screen so we can just jump right in and read it together. At one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Bhagas at Crocodile Hill in the Deer Park at Bhesakala's Wood. Now, at that time, in the land of the Magadhans, near Kalawalamutta village, Venerable Mahamoggallana was nodding off while meditating. Mahamoggallana, after his going forth as a bhikkhu, he he made the effort for 7 days before attaining his full enlightenment and becoming an arahant. During this week, he was engaged in vigorous walking meditation. But then after 7 days of walking meditation, or after 6 days of walking meditation, on the 7th day, he sat down and was troubled by fatigue, by sloth and torpor. This is what the commentary says. Drowsiness overcame him. The Buddha, through his divine eye, saw this and came to help by giving advice. Mahamoggallana is said to be liberated in both ways. He had both jhana and the 8 liberations of the 4 jhanas, the 4 formless attainments, and the attainment of cessation of feeling and perception, in addition to the liberation through wisdom or through insight. There's another set of teachings, which is, I'll tell you where it is. In the Samyutta Nikaya, starting at number 40.1, there's a group of suttas that speak about Moggallana and his effort to obtain the jhanas. The commentators are trying to make everything fit together logically, and they conclude that this sutta of nodding off must have happened either before obtaining the first jhana or somewhere in the process of obtaining the first jhana. And something else I could tell you background about Moggallana. There are 4 ways of making spiritual progress, painful progress with slow insight, painful progress with quick insight, pleasant progress with slow insight, pleasant progress with quick insight. So it said that Moggallana experienced painful but quick progress. And his dear friend Sariputta said that his way of progress was pleasant with slow progress, because it took Sariputta 2 weeks to become a fully enlightened arahant. The Moggallana, according to what we see in our suttas, frequently got personal guidance and advice from the Buddha. So he reached an impasse, and the Buddha came and helped. Sariputta was independent in making progress in meditation, and his progress had a wider range of insight. And it's for this reason that Sariputta became known as the disciple who was supreme in wisdom. So I really appreciate those 4 ways of gaining attainment, so that we can, if we're trying to develop in the path and not making progress, it's good to consider that some way we may have gotten the wrong end of the snake, or there's something about it that we're not doing correctly, and we need to learn how to make some kind of adjustment so that we can again make progress. There may be something in the underlying conditions that's creating a blockage for us. But at the same time, even if a person is doing everything right and practicing with complete sincerity, they may still encounter difficulties, suffering in the progress of their path. And it's good to have hope and to realize that it's definitely is possible, even though your path of training seems harder for you than it does for other people around you. You shouldn't lose hope. Coming back to the sutta. Mahamoggallana was nodding off while meditating. The Buddha saw him with a clairvoyance. That's the Dibba Chakuna. It's called the divine eye. It's not the same thing as the Dhamma eye, when you open the eye and are able to understand reality as it is. This is a special ability to see a person who's far away, or to see somebody far away. Then, as easily as a strong person would extend or contract their arm, the Buddha vanished from Deer Park at basic Kailas Wood in the land of the Bhagas and reappeared in the front of Mahamoggallana near Kalavala village in the land of the Magadhas. He sat on the seat spread out and said to Mahamoggallana, "Are you nodding off, Moggallana? Are you nodding off?" "Yes, sir," he replied. And now the Buddha gives a series of methods for overcoming drowsiness. He gives So this is in the book of sevens in the Anguttara. He gives 7 ways to overcome drowsiness. That's one of them. And then the 8th option is to take a nap. So the first method, don't focus on or cultivate the perception that you were meditating on when you fell drowsy. This advice, in case you came across it, there are 2 variant readings of this line. One says, the Sinhalese version, which you'll see in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, at whatever thought drowsiness befalls you, you should not give attention to that thought. And then in the Siamese reading, it says, when you perceive drowsiness descending upon you, you should make a mental note of that perception and frequently make that perception. This is drowsiness. So the 2 seem to be somewhat contradictory, but perhaps not really. My interpretation of it is more favoring that first translation of not attending to the perception you had when you started to feel drowsy. There are 2 ways this could happen. One, in the factors for the nourishment of sloth and torpor, it says that if the mind is overcome with dissatisfaction or resentment, or you could say boredom, they could become drowsy. In my lifetime, I noticed this especially in my little brother, who did not like the way our mother would love to talk about her friends and what was happening with all of her various friends and relatives. She had a lot of friends. And whenever we went home to visit, mother would be talking about this friend is doing that, and this friend is doing that, and your auntie is doing that, and your uncle is doing that. And my little brother hated it. He couldn't stand it. And so he would just immediately go to sleep in his chair because he didn't want to listen, didn't want to hear. So that's one way that, like a mind of aversion, or a mind like that's getting trapped in something afflictive, like afflictive states of mind are really tiresome. They're really exhausting. And so a person who's dwelling on their afflictions can become exhausted and become drowsy because of that. The other possibility that occurs to me to understand this line is, in my own experience, I've noticed that when I'm not drowsy, I'm able to keep the mind directed to the object of meditation. I have enough strength to choose the object that I'm following on that sit and to stay there. But when starting to fall asleep, the mind becomes extremely weak, and it starts to go off into all kind of wild stories, into like a la-la land and all kinds of weird and fabulous thoughts. Or it could be, you could call them daydreams or something like that, that happens just before falling asleep and going into a real dream state. And so that would be a moment like if the mind has got that kind of weakness, the mind is really furiously wandering. One could recognize that as something that's happening connected with sleepiness. I think we've got enough time. I could take one or two comments if there are any comments on each one of these points of advice. And if nobody has a comment, we can go ahead. But do any of you have either experience or knowledge with how there's a certain perception connected with being overtaken by drowsiness and how to overcome that? Next method. What if that doesn't work? Then think about and consider the teaching as you've learned and memorized it. Examine it with your mind. And then this thinking and examining in the Pali is anuvitaka and anuvichara. So this is applied thought and sustained thought that appears in the formula of for jhanas. But in this case, it's recalling some sutta, some Dhamma that has been taught that we've learned and memorized. And you can see that it should be clear that doing something more active can overcome drowsiness. But it wouldn't be very gainful to make the mind active by thinking about your problems or thinking about the shopping list or something like that. But rather recollecting the Dhamma that you've learned and methodically thinking about that is beneficial in two ways. One, it's active. And then in another way, the Dhamma itself is so inspiring, so uplifting, so valuable, so beneficial. So then we are helping our souls in two ways. It's possible you'll give up drowsiness in this way. But what if that doesn't work? Then recite in detail the teaching as you've learned and memorized it. So this reciting, I think, means reciting out loud. And I would really like, I know that, I know I've done this myself on many occasions. And I know when I first discovered this trick, I was really happy because I thought I was not aware of this particular sutta. And it was just, I thought that I had made a fantastic discovery that during a long retreat, if the mind became dull, or if the mind became, if one became drowsy, that one could bring the uplift and bring the energy by recollecting something that has been learned and memorized and reciting it. One thing that has been spoken of recently in our class is that listening to the teachings can be a proximate cause for stream entry, or one of the factors of stream entry. So I think it would even be possible that in recollecting sutta that you've memorized, or reciting to yourself a sutta that you've memorized, a person could bring themselves into stream entry. I think it would be possible. How many have memorized anything in the suttas? Put your hand up if you memorized something. Yes? At least you've memorized the Four Noble Truths, right? You've memorized the Eightfold Path. Yes? And so whatever it is that you've memorized. Richard, you have a comment?
Thank you. Actually, I wasn't going to comment. I was raising my hand.
Because you're yeah.
Yeah, but I would though like to make a comment. I was planning on commenting on this one here about. But if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should recite in detail the Dhamma as you have heard. Oh, I'm sorry, the one before that. But if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should ponder, examine, and mentally inspect the Dhamma as you've heard it and learned it. By such means, it is possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned. I do that quite frequently, and I find that extremely helpful for concentrating the mind to like pick something like the chain of dependent origination or something like that, and then go through it and ponder it, as you're going along, think about the implications and everything like that. And it really does, I don't know, wake up my mind or whatever. I don't know exactly how you want to put it, but it definitely, whatever tendency I might have towards drowsiness is gone when I'm doing that. It also helps me to get insight into the Dharma. I continuously kind of see deeper and deeper subtleties, by following that type of pattern. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
There's another way of thinking about this particular tip, and that is in terms of the iddhipadas. There's a particular sutta that's related to this. It's in the Samyutta Nikaya 5120, and this is a Vibhanga, which gives an analysis about the iddhipadas. And so one of the factors of developing the iddhipadas is about examining and investigating. So this is a way of developing power. And clearly waking up one's spiritual power is opposite of drowsiness. So I'm going to continue with this. Okay. So then the next method. But what if that doesn't work? Then pinch your ears and rub your limbs. Now, in this case, I consulted an article about this by Piatan. He's a wonderful writer. He's got a website called Sutta Discovery that compiles a lot of information from the commentaries and so forth. He believes that this means to rub the ears like that with the palm of the hands. But he mentions that in the Thai translation, it means to stick your fingers in your ears like that. But then the teaching that I had about pinching the ears agrees with what I learned from Bhante Gunaratana. You got to find like where the cartilage part of the earlobe is, not the soft part, but the cartilage part. And that's like an acupressure point. So if you find that point on your ears and pinch them really hard, squeeze them really as hard as you can, by means of acupressure, that's said to help to wake up. And then rubbing the limbs, I think, is maybe just a similar thing, that it's like just arousing the nervous system, and maybe the I forget if it's the sympathetic nervous system or the other one, the parasympathetic nervous system, the one that's involved with arousal. It's the one that you want to awaken, to come out of drowsiness. What if that doesn't work? Then get up from your seat, flush your eyes with water, look around in every direction, and look up at the stars and the constellations. It's possible you'll give up drowsiness in this way. Here we're taking a certain amount of sensory stimulation. There's always a danger with the sensory stimulation that it can trigger greed or aversion, or that it can trigger restlessness arising from sensual desire, sensual contact. So these objects, like the moon and the stars, would probably be, are just the, the sensation of the cold water on the face, or even the sensation of rubbing the limbs or pinching the ears. These are not the type of contact, sensory contact that might arouse greed. So to go to the kitchen and look at the food, that would be a sensory contact that could arouse greed. Or to even listening to music, or looking at the bodily form of a person who's the type of person that you're attracted to. Those kind of sensory contacts could arouse greed, but could wake you up, but in a way that goes too far, makes the mind start to wander. But just in a kind of like a controlled way, use some sensory contact to help with just enough to wake up. There's another similar idea that I have heard, that in doing the breath meditation for the purpose of samadhi, some people find it, or sometimes it's difficult to stay with the breath meditation because it gets too dull or something. The mind becomes lazy or falls into torpor with just the breath. And the suggestion was like to breathe in and then aware of the sensation where the hands are touching, and breathe out, aware of the sensation where the hands are touching. So then the attention, like at the breath, the attention is up here, and where the hands are touching is in the lap. And so the awareness is, you're making the mind is to move between those two places to give like just enough additional stimulation to support wakefulness. Any question or comment about this part? The next one is to focus on the perception of light, concentrating on the perception of day. As by day, so by night. As by night, so by day. And so, with an open and unenveloped heart, develop a mind that's full of radiance. It's possible to give up drowsiness in this way. This paragraph may seem confusing, and I want to go to the this Samyutta 51.20, the Vibhanga Sutta, which is talking about developing the basis of psychic power that has samadhi due to chanda. It's translated here as enthusiasm, or you could say a will or a decision, and active effort with the same features, attributes, and signs by day as by night. And thus, with an open and unenveloped heart, that's a boundless heart, you develop the mind full of radiance. I just want to come back to the first instant where it gives an explanation about that. See, they're developing psychic power that has immersion due to energy, or samadhi due to energy, samadhi due to mental development, samadhi due to inquiry and active effort. They think with regard to each one of these factors, they think it won't be my inquiry won't be too lax or too tense. It will be neither constricted internally nor scattered externally. And I meditate perceiving continuity as before, so after, as after, so before, as below, so above, as above, so below. So they're looking to like suffuse the entire mental space with the Dhamma or the feature that they're developing. So if you suppose it was, you've got energy, mental development, inquiry, active effort. So let's take it with energies. Let's say, so you're finding energy everywhere. Before, after, above, below. And then it says, as by day, so by night, as by night, so by day. So with an open and unenveloped heart, they develop the mind full of radiance. So what is this chanda? That's one of the factors. That's too lax. It's when chanda, that's called enthusiasm or decision, when it's combined with laziness. And when is it too tense? When it's combined with restlessness. When is it called constricted internally? That's when it's overwhelmed with dullness and drowsiness. When is it called constricted externally? That's when it's scattered externally on account of the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. So these are like 4 different ways of the dangers that can come up in meditation. If you're falling too far in one direction, you've got to bring yourself back. So then not too lax, not too tense, not too lax meaning lazy, not too tense meaning restless, not too constricted due to dullness or drowsiness, that sloth and torpor, that darkness, it's really calm, but there's nothing happening. And not scattered by being scattered and diffused on account of contact with the 5 senses. And then how to meditate, perceiving continuity, as before, so after, as after, so before. It's when it's seen in terms of dependent origination, properly grasped, focused on, born in mind, comprehended by wisdom. That's how he perceives the continuity, as before, so after. How do they meditate? As below, so above, as above, so below. Examine your body from the head to the feet, from the feet to the toes. And then how to meditate as by day, so by night. As by night, so by day. This is the phrase that we saw in our main sutta, the sutta on nodding off. When you develop your samadhi, your immersion with enthusiasm or will, active effort, with the same features and attributes by day and night. I'm not quite finding, I think it may be in the commentary for this section. The portion that I was searching for, not grasping, was, I think it must be commentarial. They say that they should go out in the open air and contemplate with the eyes open, contemplate light, and fix in the mind a very clear recollection of what the perception of light is. And then when coming inside, or then with the eyes closed, recall that perception of light. And then, the brain is doing something that's similar when you had your eyes open. And so there's an experience which is like, it's like the perception of light. It could be more like a ghost of light instead of the bright light of being outside. And then with the eyes closed, you experience something like light. And then by attending to that, you can make that become more clear. And then you can develop the ability then, even during the dark of the night, to be able to recall the perception of light and to bring that up in the mind, and with that perception of light to help yourself to awaken. That's my understanding of this particular advice. And we do see that in several places. Here's the commentary. The meditator sits in an open space, attending the perception of light. Now eyes closed, now open eyes. Having opened the eyes, he closes them. It appears just as before. That's perception by day. And then with its same arising of the same thing can arise at nighttime. Then you said you have mastered it very well. This kind of procedure, as far as I understand it, is not anything to be confused with liberation or with high spiritual attainments. This is more, I think, in the realm of like doing one's, you do your meditation push-ups and you're just practicing so that you have the capacity of choosing what you shall do with the mind. If you don't have that capacity, then you become sort of a puppet of the mind, and the mind wanders here and there, and you think of a problem, and then you start to feel upset and wonder of trying to solve the problem, or you think of something you like, and you start daydreaming about the thing you like, and you're like a victim of your own mind, a victim of your own thoughts, because you don't have the ability of choosing. But this ability of choosing where to place the mind, what to pay attention to, what to think about, is something that can be developed. It's even useful in the development of children. If children have a chance to practice and learn how they can choose about what they're going to think about, or that they can have an opportunity to choose to, have some activity that they're engaged in that's a good activity that they could really pay attention and really stick with it and be persistent with it. That's a very good thing for children to be able to learn, and it's good for adults to learn if we don't have that already. So then this doing the practice so that you could bring up the perception of light when you need it to help you overcome drowsiness as one of your tricks. That's what I think is being referred to in this line of the sutta. I could pause here to see if there are questions about this. We're very close to getting to the good part of this sutta. Okay. And what if that doesn't work? Then walk mindfully, concentrating on the perception of continuity, your faculties directed inward, and your mind not scattered outside. So one would be attending to one's own body, the sensation of moving, lifting, and placing the feet and doing walking meditation, or even towards one's own inner thought process about even having the what the feeling is that's associated with each step, the intention that's involved with doing walking meditation on purpose, or even internally investigating, using the mind to investigate what's happening with the walking meditation, noticing each step, like even if you walked day and night for 6 days, each step is its own step. So you're only able to do one step at a time. And so you can experience the one step that you're taking in the present moment, not experiencing 7 days or 6 days worth of steps. Being not scattered outside, there is more sensory impact involved in walking meditation than compared with sitting meditation. And for some people, if they have not developed restraint of the faculties, as soon as they get up to walk, the mind begins to wander. So whatever little bit of samadhi they've developed in the sitting posture, they lose it when they go to the walking posture. But if you would make the effort and do enough walking meditation so you get tired of having your mind wander, and let the mind gradually just settle down and be willing to stay with the walking meditation. That's a wonderful training, and it's a great growth in your meditation power, that you have that ability to choose to stay with a samadhi even while doing walking meditation. We know that it's more difficult to fall asleep while walking or while standing. So if one is really determined, and you definitely want to spend 8 hours, 12 hours, or 16 hours in meditation, it might not be possible to do it all in the sitting posture, but alternating sitting and walking definitely can do that. And if that doesn't work, then lie down in the lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot on top of the other, mindful and aware, focused on the time of getting up. And rest. When you wake, you should get up quickly, thinking, I will not live indulging in the pleasure of sleeping, lying down and drowsing. That's how you should train. So these are the 7 tips plus the 8th as the last option if all else fails, to take a rest. Now the Buddha goes on with his training. You should train like this. I will not approach families with my head swollen with vanity. That's how you should train. What happens if a mendicant approaches families with his head swollen with vanity? Well, families have business to attend to, so people might not notice when a mendicant arrives. In that case, the mendicant thinks, who on earth has turned this family against me? It seems they don't like me anymore. And so, because they don't get anything, they feel dismayed. Being dismayed, they become restless. Being restless, they lose restraint. Without restraint, the mind is far from immersion. So this lesson is pointing out the danger of the self-centered thinking. There's a song, I can't sing it because bhikkhunis don't get into singing pop songs, but one of the lines is, you really think this song is about you, don't you? And it can happen even in the monastery. Sometimes somebody, is just like looking down, or they get up and walk away, and you're thinking, why are they angry with me? But it turns out they needed to use the toilet, some kind of thing like that. So it really wasn't about you after all. So he gives this caution about that vanity, and how that vanity, that self-centered thinking, can lead into so much proliferation, restlessness, a loss of restraint, and being far away from samadhi. Next, you should train like this. I won't get into arguments. That's how you should train. When there's an argument, you can expect there'll be lots of talking. When there's lots of talking, people become restless. Being restless, they lose restraint. Without restraint, the mind is far from immersion. Moggallana, I don't praise all kinds of closeness, nor do I criticize all kinds of closeness. I don't praise closeness with lay people and renunciates. I do praise closeness with those lodgings that are quiet and still, far from the madding crowd, remote from human settlements, and fit for retreat.
I often wonder about isolation and how good it is to, whether it's healthy to be removed a lot from the community. The Buddha wanted monks to go in for alms rounds and stuff like that, so that they still were interacting with lay people, I guess. So the point I'm trying to get at is I can keep my home pretty quiet, and I can choose to be pretty isolated, but is there some way to maintain a balance, or what's a healthy balance? I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear. To what degree is isolation of being a recluse healthy? Right. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm really wondering about. I think I've noticed that monasteries can be pretty busy places as well. So yeah, so that's what I'm wondering about.
Well, it's a great question, and it's very true that monasteries have to make choices between busyness with practical activities, time spent in meetings and conversation, versus the time which is, you could say it's busy because it's focused on something, but the thing it's focused on would be meditation. And then the focus on being quiet or being secluded. Association with a teacher who's able to speak the true Dhamma is definitely recommended by the Buddha. When he said having the Kalyanamita, having the good spiritual friend, is the entirety of the holy life, he's referring to the kind of spiritual friend who's able to speak the Dhamma to you, and thus to actually enable your accomplishments in this path. So the Buddha didn't recommend complete isolation, and he didn't recommend complete silence either. There was a group of bhikkhus who had decided to spend the entire vasa staying together in complete silence, not speaking at all during the entire 3 months of the vasa. And the Buddha said, well, a group of 5 animals could stay together for 5 months without talking, and it wouldn't help them. So he did recommend discussing the Dhamma, talking about the Dhamma. In the example of the harmonious Sangha, they would, when they went in the alms round, that would be pretty much in silence. It wouldn't be like engaging in chat with the lay people as they as they went on alms round. Or if there was any conversation, it would be more brief. And then when they returned to their place where they were abiding, they remained in silence, just indicating by a signal, like if something was needed. They would do their chores together in silence, everybody knowing what they needed to do. And then they would have like 5 days in silence. And then at the end of their days abiding, they would discuss the Dhamma throughout the night. So they would have a full night of Dhamma conversation after 5 days of silence. So that's an example, I think, of, in a way, using the clock to set the boundaries on the talking time and the secluded time. Being around people who are negative, unwholesome people is danger, and definitely one ought to try to have some protections in that kind of association, whether it be like in time, like if there's somebody in your family who's an unwholesome person, but you can't avoid them completely, to only spend like a certain limited amount of time being with them and talking with them. If you find that associating with negative people is actually, you can assess whether your practice is going forward or whether your practice is going backward. If your practice is going backward because of bad companions, you should give up those companions. So that's what I understand.
I find with speech, and I'm really trying to watch that, when you do get in with a group of people, small talk can be really harmful. And just like the Sutta says, you kind of get caught in the flow of it. So yeah, I guess it's a balance I'm going to have to work on. Not having a monastery close, that can be a problem. And yeah, I do try to limit those reactions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'd like to go ahead now. When this was said, the Venerable Moggallana asked the Buddha, "Sir, how do you briefly define a mendicant who is freed through the ending of craving, who has reached the ultimate end, the ultimate sanctuary from the yoke, the ultimate spiritual life, the ultimate goal, and is best among gods and humans?" This is a very famous answer that appears in a few places. I would point out Majjhima Nikaya 37, Chulatana Sankhya Sutta. This is the same, it's the same lesson surrounded by a story which is kind of like a fairy tale. Moggallana. But it's just simply given this profound answer. When a mendicant has heard, nothing is worth insisting on. This word insisting on is abhinivesa. This nivesa, literally, it means settling into something, wishing for something, having an inclination for something, having an adherence. That means getting stuck on something. Or as an adjective, liking something, loving something with that sticky kind of love. It's used in the phrase sacha abhinivesa, which has got a negative meaning of adhering to dogmas. And this is why Bhante Sujato is translating it, there's nothing worth insisting on. He's thinking in terms of insisting on, which we see. This came up a few days ago. We were talking about the Four Noble Truths in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, where there's the question, where does the craving arise and where does it settle? Whatever in the world is nice and pleasant, that's where craving arises, and that's where craving settles. That settling is called nivisati, which is the verb that's related to nivesana. So it's this mental process associated, like it's how craving comes to clinging, is that craving finds the object and lands on the object and comes to be stuck or trapped in the object. So it's got a really broad meaning in terms of the natural psychology of dukkha, about how our mind being attracted to objects and getting trapped in those objects. So Buddha said, the mendicant has heard, nothing is worth getting stuck on. Nothing is worth insisting on. Nothing is worth settling down on. Again, showing the value of having a Kalyanamitta or a good spiritual friend, because the mendicant heard this. He heard it from the Buddha. So it was the Buddha's voice that brings about this turning point, hearing nothing is worth settling on. When a mendicant has heard that nothing is worth settling on or nothing worth insisting on, they direct all things. All things in this case is referring to the six senses, the internal senses and the corresponding external objects. That's the all. That's everything that, it's our entire experience can be comprehended in those six internal and the corresponding external objects. They directly know all things. Directly knowing all things, they completely understand and the complete understanding impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self aspect. Having completely understood all things, when they experience any kind of feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, they meditate, observing impermanence, dispassion, cessation, and letting go in those feelings. I think this sutta is so helpful that the feelings are between the process, the material process of the living body and a mental process. The feeling is the first thing that arises, and everything else after that, by way of perceptions and volitional intentions and the fabrication of a self, the whole process is can be fueled by feeling. But if they would be able to contemplate just the feeling at that moment, then they can see the impermanence of the feeling. They can be dispassionate towards the feeling, the cessation of sensual desire. They can experience the cessation of dukkha in connection to those feelings. Because of seeing the impermanence and being dispassionate, then the dukkha ceases connected to that feeling. They experience the cessation of feeling. And then the letting go is, that's the letting go of all the defilements with respect to those feelings. So just in that moment, how many hundredths of a second does it take for a feeling to arise? And how quick and ephemeral a feeling is. And yet all of this can be experienced within the passing of a single moment of a feeling. Meditating in this way, they don't grasp at anything in the world. Not grasping, they're not anxious. The anxious, that's paritasati, that's referring to trembling. Actually, in the Pali, there's two meanings of tasati that comes from two different roots. One meaning is trembling because of desire, and the other meaning is trembling because of fear. So, not grasping, they're not trembling in either one of those senses. Not being anxious or not trembling, they personally not being agitated, they personally become extinguished. That's the parinibbana. Parinibbayati. They understand rebirth is ended. The spiritual journey has been completed. What had to be done has been done. There is no return to any state of existence. That's how, this is the Buddha speaking, that's how I briefly define a mendicant who is freed through the ending of craving, who has realized the ultimate end, the ultimate sanctuary from the yoke, the ultimate spiritual life, the ultimate goal, and is best among gods and humans. Richard.
Thank you. I would like to examine that the Pali there. Sabbe Dhamma Nalam Abhinivasaya. Don't mind my pronunciation. I'm not an expert in Pali in that sense. Can you quote the translation that you were using there? Nothing is worth.
Nothing is worth insisting on. Yeah.
Insisting on, right? Okay.
Sabbe
Sabbe means all. Yeah, Sabbe Dhamma. All Dhamma. Now I translate Dhamma as objective reality. And then Nalam, right? Not enough, unsuitable. And then
I believe that's not alam.
Yeah, not enough. I'm just looking at the Pali translation here. I use a certain tool called the Digital Pali Reader. It's a very advanced tool. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I think this should.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I am, but I'm not. I don't have it at the tip of my fingers. So
okay, but anyways,
I don't have that tool.
Okay,
so I think nalam is not alam.
Yeah, not alam, right? It's na alam, right? So it's under Sandhi, it's combined. Okay. Anyway, so then the last words, abhinivesaya, that's abhi and nivesa. So abhi is like taking possession and mastering, like that. And nivesa is entering, stooping, settling down, house or abode, right? So if you look at the end of the section, the translation, it says, birth is ended, something like that, right? So what it's talking about here specifically is taking birth somewhere. You know what I mean? Whether a physical form or a heavenly form, or in the formless realm, a kaya.
There's no place we want to settle into in rebirth.
Right. So that's why at the bottom. That's why I'm saying I think that translation is a little bit not quite enough. It's a little bit sort of, in my opinion, anyways, not quite as clear as it should be. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, this is Bhante Sujata's translation that I had up on the screen. And I was nothing worth insisting on. I thought really doesn't do justice to the meaning.
Yes.
I looked up the Pali dictionary for the abhinivesa, which is described as what I was quoting, settling in, which for having the being inclined to. And then it's got a specialized meaning of adherence to a doctrine. That's kind of like a special case. But it could be adherence to anything.
Yeah, so it's saying, all objective reality, wherever you can go, any of the worlds, anything like that, there's no birth, worth taking ultimately. The reason you take a birth is to experience the sense experience there. You know what I mean? So none of that is worth it. It's too much trouble. It's too much, translate suffering, right? It's just going to end up badly, So, it's not, so when you finally hear this from the Buddha, that's why, okay, forget it. I'm not doing that again. You let go. Anyway, so that was one point I wanted to make. The other point is that, and this is something that I've contemplated for a long time, the story of Sariputta and Moggallana going to see the Buddha for the first time. Now, there's something rather odd about that story, which is, Sariputta, right now here you're getting a chance to go and study in your Sotapans already, right? Directly under the Buddha. So Sariputta stays right there with the Buddha, and supposedly, I think this is a misunderstanding, and supposedly Moggallana wanders off someplace and goes off by his own, far away, and just starts trying to do meditation or something like that. I don't believe that that's what would have happened at all. If you had a chance, I don't know what level you consider yourself at, and I know that monastics are not supposed to tell lay people, but if you were at least a Sotapan and you right now got a chance to go study directly with the Buddha, with the first thing you do is like, well, see you later. I'm going to try to go up and master this on my own and wander off somewhere to find some place where you can try on your own to do something. It just doesn't make any logical sense. And not only that, but that village that he goes to is in Magda, and Rajgahar is in Magda, and the bamboo grove is in Magda. So it could have just been that he went to a village just, a little ways away, maybe a few miles or something, but not even, he didn't really go to the village. He went there to beg for alms, it says. He went to that little village, daily to beg for his alms. So he could have just been staying, whereas I think they say Sariputta went and stayed in a cave nearby. He could have just found some nice quiet place in the forest or something, close nearby to the Buddha, right? And went there to meditate because, other than that, it just, to me, it as a story just doesn't make any sense. I can't see myself doing it, and I can't see anybody else doing it. Once you become an arahant, yeah, you might, like the Buddha sent the first 61 arahants away, to teach and stuff. But a brand new disciple who just attained, Sotapanna, well, nice to meet you here. I'll let you know my progress when if and when I come back, right? I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say, but it's up to everyone to come to their own conclusions.
I would say that there's the contrary. Another example of Mahapajapati approaches the Buddha and requests a teaching in brief. And she said, having heard the teaching in brief, then I will go off by myself or and secluded and practice with this teaching. So in that case, it was given as a positive example to hear a teaching, then go to seclusion and practice with it. Elsewhere, I think there are comments. The Buddha didn't want people to need to be with him day in and day out, with him always like spoon feeding. He wanted to give them enough, and then they would then take it and work with it on their own. I'm not commenting about going far away or being so isolated like that.
Yeah. No, there are many, many examples like you just gave in the suttas where someone give me something in brief, but usually that's a long-term disciple or someone who had, already heard the Buddha's teaching a lot and everything, right? And now they've kind of come to the point where, okay, I'm ready. Tell me, what do you think I need? What should I focus on to make that final, push? But that's my point. Sariputta Moggallana just showed up. They just got there. I just don't. I don't know. But again, that's just my point of view. But teach his own.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's hear from Sharanya.
Thank you, Aya. So when you mention this phrase, nothing is worth insisting on or holding on to, what actually came to my mind was a very specific situation that my friend is going through. And then when Richard talked about how it really could be like not insisting on any kind of life because no life is worth having. So anyways, but I think this idea that still needs to be explored in the context of lay life. So I have a friend in Atlanta who said that the reason his marriage survived for like 30 years was because he let his wife have her way. And he's a much older person now, and has to work because he's got bills to pay. So apparently his wife insisted on moving to a bigger house after they'd paid their smaller first house. And so now he finds himself pressured to kind of go to work when it should actually be his retirement, right? So when you were saying this, I was like, I don't know if I buy that, because there are some things you have to insist on if you want to ensure your welfare, not just financial in this case, but also physical and mental welfare. So I was a little confused about how that would translate to most of us who have not taken up the monastic life.
Yeah. So that translation, insisting on is a very confusing translation, isn't it? Insisting on a dogma is something that the Buddha criticized. The different schools of the mendicants or the religious teachers would come together in the town or the village square, and they would be debating each other. Like whoever wins the debate, then the people are supposed to follow that teaching because they're able to defeat the other one. And it leads to, it doesn't lead to what's progressive or useful for spiritual growth. On the other hand, what we understand as, say, what's virtuous, or what we understand as the correct step for us in our practice, there is this statement that a person should make an adhitthana, should make a determination, should make a resolution. And so that, in that sense, it's considered to be a wholesome thing, a skillful thing, a good, quality of character, that one is capable of making a determination and keeping that determination. Now, it's also true that there's a way that later on you let go. Like if you had a child and that child's life or welfare was in danger, you would do anything. You would throw your own body into the fire to save the child. You would go to the school board and make a scene in front of the school board to help your child. You would do anything to help your child, right? So that's like making that kind of determination or insisting on something. But then it's also true that as that child grows up, you can't keep clinging to that child. When you're 60 years old and your child is 40 years old, if you're still clinging to that child and that child is still clinging to you, then something went wrong in your maturity that caused that still to be hanging on like that. So, and this is in ordinary life. You got to know when to hold on and when to let go. But this nivisati is usually given in a negative. No, I think always in the suttas given in a negative sense, and it's talking about the way there's a tendency that the mind can become trapped or stuck. And as long as it remains stuck, then going around in samsara, going around in rebirth. But if we can learn how to let go of what should be let go of, letting go of the defilements, allowing and to hold on to something is ceasing. I mean, you can't hold on in any way, but if you try to hold on to something that's already going into cessation, that because of impermanence, trying to hold on to things that are impermanent just creates more stress and dukkha. So those are the ways that you can get stuck. And this is what the Buddha said: don't get stuck there. I believe that Bhante, you've just pointed out another way in which Bhante Sujata's translation could create a misunderstanding or create confusion. And I can write him a letter on your behalf questioning that translation and suggesting that he give a different translation for that word.
Thank you. That's helpful. So what I'm actually hearing you say is that the conditions really determine when to hold on and when to insist and when to not.
Yes, right. Yeah. I'll call on Anana.
Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation says, nothing is worth holding to, instead of insisting on. That's how he translates it.
That is a little bit more useful, I think, because it's more general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've gone a few minutes over our time. I appreciate everybody's patient listening and your support of us and participation in these programs. Let's close by giving a respect to the Triple Gem.